Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Alternate Future of the World. Now, last episode, we saw Russia invading Ukraine. They are still sovereign, by the way, they're not a puppet. We see East Africa uniting, and we see Georgia getting annexed by Russia. Sad. Also, a new alliance be created in the Pacific. So, without further ado, let's get on with this new scenario. You can clearly see by the thumbnail, it clearly says East Asia on it. Has East Asia on it, but I'll be unfocusing on that for a bit and going into Europe for some things. Now, last episode we saw Scotland actually have a bit of a nationalistic rise in which they called for a referendum. And what are the referendum results of 2033? Yes, this is the year we're working with. Well, we see 53%. And 47%, if I get my math right. Yeah, I did. Anyway, the part that wanted to leave was the 53%. So, we see Scotland gaining independence. Now, it's honestly not that big of a deal, really. I mean, it's a big of a deal for Britain, but not really for anybody else. As for alliances, Scotland will not be in NATO, they'll just chill. But this brings about some new age of stuff in Europe. Not new age, but just a few rises. Especially in Spain, where, I don't know if you guessed it, but Catalonia. Yeah. Anyway, Catalonia will also riot. Oh, they'll riot saying, we want independence. This is the second time it's happened on my channel. Anyway, Spain will hold a referendum, and an overwhelmingly 82% of people want to leave. And so that's it. Goodbye, Spanish Catalonia, and hello, Catalonian Catalonia. Anyway, they will be like this. Hooray. Anyway, yay. We also see nothing else happened in Europe, but maybe something else happens in Europe in later episodes. Anyway, moving on to the Middle East, this is probably, you thought it was going to be bad, but it's actually quite good. Saudi Arabia establishes a new alliance, with the founding members being Oman, Iraq, Yemen, Kuwait, and Jordan, along with themselves. This is like military Arab League, if the Arab League wasn't military enough. It's called the Arab Defense League, or the ADL. And it's open to all countries, but especially countries in the Arab sphere, which I'd say is around here, because they had a caliphate. Maybe around here also, maybe somewhere in the Balkans as well. But Saudi Arabia opens it to the public. Now, time for a few more stuff before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, which is more countries joining the PDO, being Australia and New Zealand. This is just because they want to, but the big hunker in the room is the US joining. Now, they're not really an official member of the PDO, they're just there, I guess. They show up to meetings occasionally, but mainly they're just chilling their own. And we also see no one else. But we also see, Kosovo vying to join NATO, in which they'll be put on hold since they're not really a sovereign nation. Anyway, now, time to get into the nitty-gritty of the scenario. You guessed it right, it's happening right here in East Asia. Now, a bit of lore for you guys. Now, China will begin by circling ships around Taiwan, more in relentless drills around the next few months after Catalonia's independence. Now this will be kind of nerve-wracking for Taiwan, as of course China's ships are now in their naval space. I don't think it's in their naval space, maybe in international waters, but still being a bit scared. More than that, more military boats of all things are going near Taiwan's coast, and even near the coast in the Korean-Japanese Sea. Especially with North Korean ships. I think they're around here. But they're only for a few hours, so I don't know how long military drills last for, don't ask me. But anyway, yeah. It's basically just turning into one big staring contest across East Asia. And then the final spark that caused this... Let me just get this prepared. The final spark that caused this is Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, sending an attack onto the south. Now this was ordered to by China, who said, "Why?" By China saying that they'll invade Taiwan on the same day, in which they do. And so Japan declares war on China, and subsequently the rest of the PDO attacks alongside their allies, including Australia and New Zealand, but these guys will basically be useless. No offense. But yeah, stuff is going on in East Asia now. But what will the US think of it? Of course, they're in the PDO, but they're also in NATO, so if they attack on China, the rest of NATO would probably attack China, which would mean the CSTO could probably help China, leading to a full-scale World War III. And that is not happening right now. It's not happening right now. No. So the US will send troops and everything to fight, especially because Japan, surprisingly, does not have their own military. But now they do. I called it, and now they do. Anyway, now we will finally get into the nitty-gritty of the Great East Asian War. Starting in the Korean Peninsula, North Korea absolutely is prepared for this, and South Korea is not absolutely prepared for this. So you can see how North Korea has a slight advantage here, as well as having more military and a big ally. Well, South Korea has big allies as well. China also does a little bit of naval landings across Taiwan, some of which do work, some of which don't, but they're kind of held in a stalemate right now. Anyway, South Korea will continue to get steamrolled until Japanese troops come here, until they can recapture Seoul, which that's actually being held pretty heavily. Don't ask me why, they just can, and North Korea will. Anyway, they'll invade into South Korea, taking it all over, and, they'll be pushed back to the border for a little bit. Until North Korea can push them back. Vietnam also receives a few troops into here, almost reaching what was the capital of Vietnam again? I forgot. I think it was Hainan. Not Hainan. Gotta look that up. Anyway, they'll invade into Vietnam. And, it's probably going to be a little bit hard. So they kind of pull some troops out, leading to Vietnam pushing them back. Because they have more important fronts to deal with now, mainly being here. But North Korea will manage to recapture Seoul again, and will almost nearly capture the entirety of the peninsula, leading to South Korea having its last stronghold in Busan, which is where a giant defensive line is put up. But if a potential peace treaty is settled and North Korea makes it to the border, who knows what will happen? Heck, what knows what will happen if North Korea reclaims all of Korea, even though that didn't happen. Anyway, more naval landings are made in Taiwan, near Taipei, and yay. Well, not yay, because Taiwan is getting bombarded with ships. Not hooray. Anyway, they'll go near the coast and basically just capitulate. No. So the country that they're fighting for is gone. South Korea, gone. And now Japan's basically on their own. But Australia and New Zealand are sending troops in a heavy number, especially also America and the West. Even Russia's not really supportive of what China's doing right now. But Japan will land a few naval landings in Busan, which will eventually manage to naval capture a good portion of South Korea, liberating it from evil Korea's hands. Anyway, China will also invade into the Philippines. Is Manila in the Philippines? I think that's capital, yes. But they'll invade this northern island. I don't think it's Manila, correct me if I'm wrong. But they do advance into the archipelago before being pushed back, since America's not letting to see their favourite country die 2 times in a row. One time being by their ally, and the other time being by their enemy. Anyway, they'll be left to be here. Now China's forces are spreading a little thin. Especially because they're kind of neglecting the entire region. Or an entire region. Because, I read online that, most of the population of China lives, somewhere past this line. Especially near the Tibetan Xinjiang region. And that makes it kind of hard for China, not gonna lie. In which that most of the people are sad because China's focusing more on the west or the east, that they are on the west of the country, because these guys need supplies. They are not getting said supplies, and now they are sad because they aren't getting supplies. Anyway, America's gonna actually take advantage of this. A Tibetan rebellion pops up all across the Himalayas. Yeah, anyway, stuff will happen now. As this thing actually gains a lot of traction within the Tibetans. Local militaries try to stop it, but just getting a bit too powerful. Even with US equipment disguised to be as Tibetan. Let me just say, these are regular people or soldiers, but they are getting lots of support. They want to bring back the republic that was there before Chinese conquests of Tibet. Similarly, pro-Turkic people in Xinjiang want to rebel. Now, I feel like China's done some pretty horrendous stuff here, which I will not name because I don't know either. But they'll start rebelling as well, and eventually they'll start to connect up their little pockets with each other, encircling Chinese people and, fully capturing it. China's kind of surprised by this. They're like, oh, whoa. But they're also like, oh no. Because they now need to spread their forces a little thin. Because they need to like focus more on here. But at the same time, they don't want people over in this region to gain more popularity and strength by foreign countries. Anyway, now stuff will start to happen. Tibetan rebels start allying themselves with India and Bhutan and Nepal, start gaining supplies from them, and also start to make their way throughout the Himalayan mountains, which I think is kind of natural to them as they've lived there. Xinjiang will do the same, and yay! They shall do that and consolidate most of the region they want to conquer, or at least half of it. Now it is here where China's gonna start to be in trouble. They specifically target Tibet, but they also pull out their forces in Baba, still managing to maintain control over Taiwan, but they do push PDO forces out of the other countries. Albeit more rebellions are popping up. Just kidding, nothing else is happening, it's just these two. But no. A democratic China is starting to pop up, especially near the old capital of Nanjing. I feel like that's more Shanghai, but they are actually allied. And they peacefully liberate and take over Taiwan, kind of uniting themselves with Taiwan. But these guys will be nearly crushed. There will still exist near pockets of the world. I know most of this video is mainly just East Asia, but it's kind of like the main focus of this video. Anyway, Japan will actually start to see some major pushbacks in Korea, managing to fully push out to the north from the south and push the south into the north. Soon we won't need to use these compass directions, as now we need to reach Pyongyang. And North Korea, Kim Jong-un is assassinated and taken away. Anyway, North Korea is fully taken, and now China's kind of facing the oh no button and pressing it repeatedly. But that's not even the worst of it. Some third-party members are starting to gain more stuff. Mongolia joining so that they can get more Inner Mongolia. Don't ask me why, they just wanna. I wonder if it's full of ethnic Mongolians though. But they do gain a big foothold in it, albeit this is the biggest territorial gain they can get, as they are indeed small. But they do make some minor pushbacks. Xinjiang will continue their offensive into China, eventually working with Tibet in order to consolidate the regions. Vietnam will start to make landings in here, especially reaching Hainan. I think that's this little island. Oh, Hanoi! Hanoi's the capital. Anyway, they will start fading into China mainly just because. They also see Hong Kong on the way, and Hong Kong actually rebelled on their own, hooray! But they will be minor, so yeah. The Democratic Republic of China, or the DRC, but we'll just call them National China. They start to manage to go near the coast. Korea and Japan manage to go into Manchuria and start to threaten Beijing. Tibet will go a little further before signing a little peace deal with China, saying that, hey, we got all we wanted. And then Xinjiang will do the same, pushing back a little more. Pushing a little bit more further before saying, hey, fine with us. Anyway, Mongolia will do a bit more, saying, until we're fine. Hong Kong will unite with Macau to form a Pearl River Rebellion. Democratic rebels spearhead into here, reaching this peninsula. So I'm making it even more spearhead. And now, China will have another communist China take over. And that wants to reform like the Soviet Union, but they got crushed. It didn't take much popularity. But Democratic China will eventually take Beijing. And eventually it's kind of just one big blah blah. Anyway, they just united with Vietnam in this scenario. Anyway, they take over all of southern China, with China's central government collapsing as basically every country for themselves. Xinjiang still pushes a little bit forward, which is kind of scary for Tibet. But they'll eventually reach a peace deal in which we shall now take a look at the peace treaty. So when it comes to this peace treaty, there is a lot of changes we made. So first off, in Korea, North Korea is fully annexed under the southern regime. Going a bit more north, we see Manchuria is independent now. Of course, bordering Russia, so maybe going to become a little bit of a puppet, but that's for time to tell, and not for me to tell. Mongolia gains Inner Mongolia. Xinjiang gains independence. Tibet gains independence. Also, the Kashmiri part that belonged to Tibet at the end of the peace treaty, they gave that to India. Hong Kong gains independence with Macau and expands across the Pearl River, kind of becoming Pearl River Republic, albeit it's not along the Pearl River, somewhat near the Pearl River, so that counts. But as we take a look at the remaining two Chinas, this China is the regular one, like the CCP, but a reformed CCP, so it's a weakened CCP. The south one contains all of this land and belongs to Taiwan, with the capital still at Taipei. And now they rename themselves the RSC, the Republic of South China. And these guys call themselves the PRNC, the People's Republic of North China. Anyway, so now that's done with. Also, Pearl River joins the PDO. Time to get into more alliance-y stuff, including more joinings and the creation of an alliance. First off, with the ADL, Egypt, the UAE, including this little part of Oman, I forgot to colour that in, and Lebanon all join the alliance, as well as Turkey, which will now get this colour. To signify that they're in both. But now another alliance will be created in Africa, being the East African Pact, or the East African Commonwealth. This will be founded by the East African Federation and the DRC. Not Zambia. Sorry, Zambia. But they will be followed by members like Mozambique and the CIR. This is soon to be a great African alliance. But now, that'll conclude it for this episode of Alternate Future of the World. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry that this was long, I just took a little bit too long with China. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.